Good morning, children. Welcome to the second video of the poem Childhood of your textbook, Hornbill. The poem is written by Markus Natten. In the first video, we read first stanza of the poem. So today, we are going to start the second stanza. Here it is. When did my childhood go? Was it the time I realized that adults were not all they seemed to be? They talked of love and preached of love, but did not act so lovingly. Was that the day? First of all, the word meanings. They seemed to be. Seemed here, appeared to be. Then in the fourth line, preached of love. Preach means taught. And then in the second last line, act so lovingly. Act, that is, behave. And same line, lovingly, that means with compassion or love for others. So here the poem starts with the same question, with the same line, which carries the central message of the poem. When did my childhood go? Poet is thinking over and giving different explanation of this. So when did his childhood go? When he realized that adults were hypocrites. Who are the hypocrites? Who tell one thing and do something other. They advise others to be loving, but as you can see in this photograph, they themselves were hardly affectionate. So when the child was able to see through the hypocrisy, see through the double faced of the adults, was that the time he attains maturity and lost his childhood? Double faced hypocrites means they are saying something and themselves behaving in some other way. They carry this face that they are very kind, they are very loving, caring, truthful. So that's what they preach other, they teach others. But themselves they do not follow this. So then they are called hypocrites. So hypocrites, adult people are like this. So when he was able to understand the hypocrite world, the hypocrisy of the adult, this is when the child lost his trust and faith in the adults. The poet realizes the probably his ability to see through the hypocrisy of the world, the loss of faith and trust might have been the major steps towards losing his childhood. Second stanza is completed here. Now the third one. When did my childhood go? Was it when I found my mind was really mine to use whichever way I choose, producing thoughts that were not those of other people but my own and mine alone? Was that the day? First of all, the word meanings. Really mine, that means it was not influenced by others' opinion. Whichever, that is any way, whichever way I want to. Producing, that means creating his own thoughts. And thoughts, as you know, they are the views or the opinion that comes into one's minds. So what is the poet saying here? When he was able to think himself, his thoughts were not influenced by others. He was able to, ready to take his own decision of life. So was it when he realized that he was the master of his mind? He can think without getting influenced by others. He realized that he can take his own decisions. His sense of individuality dawned on him. He was ready to take the decision. That means he was able to understand what is right and what is wrong for him. As he grew up, The poet realized that his mind was unique, could form its own opinion, and could take its own decisions. He gained a sense of individuality which set him free from the prejudiced opinion of others around him. His own experiences shaped his thoughts now, and he realized that this might have been the time he lost his childhood innocence completely. Prejudice means preconceived ideas that are formed about someone or something beforehand. So he was least affected by the prejudiced ideas of others. He was able to take his own decision. So perhaps this might have been the time when he lost his childhood innocence completely. Fourth stanza starts here. In the fourth stanza, the question is changed. In stanza first, second, and third, he asks, when did my childhood go? As I told you, this contains the central message of the poem. When can we determine, can we demarcate a time that here the childhood is ended and maturity or adulthood started? So that's what he is thinking here. But in the fourth stanza, that thought is changed, and now he wants to know where. Where did my childhood go? It went to some forgotten place that's hidden in an infant's face. That's all I know. Forgotten means unremembered. He just couldn't recall where he kept it. Hidden, concealed, out of sight, kept out of sight. An infant refers to very small child. So in this stanza, the poet changes his question. The poet now wonders where his childhood has gone. Where? The poet believes that his childhood has become nothing more than a memory for him. Like when we lose our near and dear ones, they are just a part of the photograph, just a memory. So here the childhood also has become nothing more than a memory for the poet. But at the same time, it has become the reality of some other infant. He reflects that maybe his childhood has gone to an unremembered place. He does not remember where, he doesn't know where, but it has become the reality of some other infant. So he believes that innocence is a cyclical process where lost from one person, it travels to another, finding residence there. The still date, adults can easily recall and seem to almost relive their own childhood through an infant in their lives. So, when he is asking where his childhood disappeared to some forgotten place and it is still hidden in an infant's innocence face. Now, the poetic devices, the most important one is refrain. The refrain of any poem is the line or are the lines that repeat at regular intervals throughout the poem. The refrain often carries the central message of the poem. Here also, in our poem also, it carries the central message. The line which is repeated in stanza 1, 2nd, and 3rd. So that is, when did my childhood go? And then the last of all these three stanza was that the day. So these are the part of refrain. The two lines which do so in the poems are, okay, have you understood this? Now the first line, which is a question, when did my childhood go, identifies the central theme of the poem. What is that? That is the attempt to identify when exactly the poet lost his childhood. And the second line which start with a question. Was that? So it's starting with a question but ends with an exclamation. Hence, it is no more a mere question, it's a rhetorical question. What is a rhetorical question? Where the answer is hidden in the question. If I ask you, isn't that true? So answer is hidden in this one, it means it is true, right? So this one, was that the day? This is also a rhetorical question in nature. This lines brings out the poet's sense of realization that this was the time when he attained maturity and lost his childhood. This was the most prominent poetic device. The other poetic devices used in the poem, alliteration. In this figure of speech, a number of words having the same first consonant sound occur close together in a series. For example, hell and heaven, H sound repeated, her sound repeated, that the day, the repeated, sound the, my mind, m is repeated, whichever way, were is repeated. All these words combination are used in this poem. The next poetic device is antithesis. This figure of speech refers to the placement of opposite or contrasting ideas together. This emphasizes the difference between the two ideas and adds interest to writing. It can be seen in the use of the words hell and heaven. Two opposite or contrasting ideas are placed together to emphasize the difference between the two ideas. The next is enjambment. This figure of speech refers to the practice of running lines of poetry from one to the next without using any kind of punctuation to indicate a stop. So that punctuation is not used. Rhyme learns without any punctuation. We get the example in the second stanza, second line. Was at the time I realized that adults were not, so without any, even not a comma has been put here. So these are the main poetic devices used in this poem. I hope you have understood the poem. With this, we have come to the end of the poem. Thank you and have a nice day.